Welcome to the Between the Fur podcast, the show that allows professional mascot performers from the NBA and other pro sports to share their bizarre, funny and inspirational stories and give exclusive insight on what it's like behind the scenes and between the fur. Hosted by award-winning NBA mascot performer, Ken Solomon.
Hey, welcome back to Between the Fur. We have a special guest today, John Lessiue, former mascot for the New Jersey Nets. Good friend of mine. We've reconnected, and it is awesome to talk to him again. We were just talking a little bit before we hit record here on his character.
I appreciate being here. I've been following you all along, but, I jumped out of the mascot world, and I'm just another working guy on the street now, but follow it all.
But you're still in the sports scene, right?
Yes. I work for a company called Mitchell & Ness, and we're kind of known for our sports jerseys. I'm guessing some of your listeners probably will know who that is. And prior to that, I've worked for other companies in the sporting goods and sports license business. So I stay in touch with it all because it crosses over. And realistically, one of the ways kind of we reconnected is I connected you with a company that's investigating retro mascot t-shirts and things.
Which is so cool. That, the retro thing, man, going back, some of that stuff is so cool. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
So we explain the characters that you were.
All right. I'm going to give you the lowdown of how I even ended up knowing you in this crazy world behind the fur, quote unquote. I was a season ticket holder for the New Jersey Nets. Huge fan. I was a kid. I was 20 something years old, running a Champ sporting goods store, had season tickets, and you go in and you talk to your season ticket person, and they sell you a seat. And I said, okay, that's a really cool job. How do I get your job? I wanted to work for the team because I was a fan. She goes, you got to get an internship, and you already have your degree. So I went back. I actually have a master's degree in sports marketing, and I did an internship with the Nets. And then I talked myself into a job at the Nets in the front office. And the mascot at the time was an actor, just a guy who was in the entertainment business, as you and I have discussed, like he's an entertainer, but he wasn't a fan. And he'd miss all these opportunities. So they had auditions for it. And I said, can I try out? I'll do my job during the day, put the costume on and run around during the games because I don't have a lot of game duties after the first quarter even.
Awesome.
Next thing
you basically just dove in because you loved the game and wanted to be around it, be part of it, and you were willing to do whatever it took.
Pretty much.
You went back and were an intern after you had a master's degree.
Correct. So I do all of that. And then exactly, trust me, from an education standpoint, oh, that's fantastic. What did you do? I got a job as a mascot with my master's. Good for me. But it was fascinating. Now, the Nets at the time were one of the worst teams in the league. We were awful. It was, if you have any NBA, old schoolers here, the ownership group was known as the Secaucus Seven. There were 7 owners involved. And therefore, decision-making was a disaster area.
Yeah, basically no Chiefs in that. Yeah.
7 Chiefs, no Indians, right?
Right.
So they held auditions. I auditioned. They give it to me. At the time, the mascot was called Duncan. And it was made by the same costume creators that made the Philly Fanatic.
Harrison Erickson.
It was a very similar costume there. Harrison and Erickson, they're based down in Philadelphia, I believe. And, it had the big belly, so the hoop that you could jiggle around the belly like the Fanatics. I looked out the neck, so I had a blower in my mouth, so the nose blew out like streamers. Thing weighed like, 50, 60 pounds, hung on your shoulders. Did that for 2 years. Then, because of the way the Nets were, they changed the costume. At the time, they were leasing the costume, and they went back to the company and asked, we'd like to buy it out. Well, of course, they gave them some absurd number because they'd already kind of established this as their mascot. And of course, the Nets ownership told them,
Yeah.
take a
Kick rock.
walk. We're not doing that. We'll go develop our own, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that happened because the reason it was so expensive is because guys like you, the Gorilla, Buzz, it was that era of mascotting that it was really starting to blow up. The what's the TV show with Ahmad Rashad?
Oh yeah. Inside.
Inside Stuff.
Yep.
That was just happening. And so, mascots were perfect content for that. So this whole thing was blowing up, and the cheap Nets are looking for ways to cut costs. So we create a costume.
No,
and I will
an
tell
NBA
you,
team trying to cut costs.
yeah. So I will tell you that I often joke how your mascot experience is almost like the antithesis opposite of my mascot experience. So you are all involved. You're cutting your own deals. You're helping with the costume. You're coming up with skit ideas. Everything I did had to be like double and triple approved by people at the Nets.
by the
I
seven.
had a front office job.
Yeah.
So, I just went, okay, go create a new costume. And it got left to other people at the Nets and the league, but it was always assumed I'd wear it. So we created this other costume called Super Dunk. And it was somewhat of a morph between a Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtle that was very popular at the time and a Smurf. Because Smurfs were popular too at the time, and the colors were red, white, and blue, and they used the blue from the Smurfs. But realistically,
if I remember right, it's got the muscles.
it's got the
but not very good muscles.
no,
like kind of like the Michelin Man muscles, just kind of
like a bad Halloween costume muscles. It's exactly what it was. So lo and behold, it had the googly eyes. I looked out of the mouth.
and the
Didn't
cheesy
have any
grin.
it didn't have any streamers or anything. But so, at the time, again, I'm a young guy working in the front office. I'm a fan. Fine, I'll wear that costume. I don't care what costume you want me to wear. So I wore that. It's a bad costume. And realistically, the Nets didn't like any of my stunts. Like, don't climb on right? You no longer can go on the rim, correct?
Right. I remember when that rule came down.
Right. You can't, repelling. Not necessarily. They didn't even like dunking off the trampoline. Too much risk. So
that was what we were all doing at the time. It was the day of the dunk. It was everybody. You're dunking. You got to be throwing yourself all over the place.
Yes, like you and Paul, right? The guy from Indiana.
Lenny, Paul Lenny.
You and all the guys from the gymnastics background that slowly started jumping into the league in these costumes. I'm just some young guy in the front office that's like a fan that, you mean I get to run out there and like get everybody to cheer at timeouts? Well, yeah, I want that job. I love this team. So it was a very interesting dynamic at the time. And again, Super Dunk. Barely ever dunked. Ever. In the entire history of costume. Fascinating.
I remember at an all-star game or whatever, when we were, I don't know, there together, and you were just making fun of yourself so much. We were all just rolling. You're like, I'm Super Dunk. Can't remember the last time I dunked. I'm Super
That's
Dunk.
what it was.
Dunk.
I was, when you look at it, what the old costume was, that Fanatics one, which is really good for skits and silliness and just keeping the kids happy and something to distract because the team was awful. And that's what I did, even though I wore the other costume. It was, it's about the little things that make the kids happy. So I was way more slapstick comedy, fall down, steal the boxing skit from you with Barkley so people can knock me down, which of course leads to, every fan then punching you for random reasons. There were times that the Nets would send me out without a handler. So
Oh,
I'm out in the crowd all by myself. You
oh,
know what that can be like.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So it really
Throwing you to
was
the wolves.
a fascinating experience from that standpoint. And then to your point, being thrown to the wolves, we were awful. So people would be angry because we were so bad by the end of the game. The last thing some guy wants is a high five from Super Dunk, and he, boom.
And especially in New York. Oh, that's not
Exactly.
the most congenial crowd.
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, needless to say, that aspect of like the costume, the support the team gave me, even, I'd be lying to say I didn't spend much time thinking about it. It was like a part time way to make some extra cash. People got a kick out of it. And then it's funny, I think I shared with you that I've worked in like the sporting goods, sneaker, young men's industry my whole career. So I used to sell at the time, I was working for a company called Avia, the sneaker company.
Yeah.
And, during the day, I was a sales guy for Avia running around because I left the Nets front office at one point, but kept doing the mascot.
And was that because of money or politics or
Money. Hey,
combination?
well, sometimes I look back, Kenny, and think, man, I should have followed your lead. Although you're one of the few, I think, that have made it such an amazing career, because there's this other part of you that goes, yeah, what are you doing? No, you're not going to focus on your mascot as your career, because I have a master's degree in sports marketing and, another degree. And I used to work for Champ Sporting Goods, you know, what do you do? So I slowly was like, I can't work here. I'm not going to be the president of the Nets. I'm not climbing that ladder. So I decided to go back and, spend more time focused on the other aspect of my career, and kind of looked at this mascot thing as like, it's just a side gig. Well, 20 some odd years later, what the hell did I know? I should have followed your lead, or Wes, or all of the amazing guys throughout the league that have turned this into a full-time career. It's kind of
Well,
amazing.
I, as I'll stop you there and give you a little bit of just the reality on this. And this is important for my listeners, I think, especially. And so I want to throw this out there. Yes, jumping into the NBA is, in my opinion, the pinnacle of the mascot world. Okay. If you want to perform, if you are a performer, if you want a stage, if you want all eyes on you, NBA, that's where you go. Problem is that if you're not a performer, you can still make it, especially now. Okay. Because and I say it's a problem. It's all in the way you look at it. If you want to be an NBA mascot, and you just have to be aware that you don't necessarily need to be a performer anymore. I mean, some teams really want that still, but most are steering away. They want somebody that's just going to follow the rules, shake hands, pat heads, hold up a sign, that type of thing. But so it's kind of a fine line there. If you want to make an impact, it's you got to pick the right team. If you're a performer, pick the right team. If you just want to get in costume and be there and whatever. Now the other thing is that if I had to do it all over again, if I had the choice, knowing what I know now and being the age I am, I might have gone to the NFL. Dun dun.
Huh.
Because longevity, it's not as hard on your body, in my opinion. Second, less games and less stunts and things like that. Main reason though, they have retirement. NBA does not have retirement. You put on all these years, and maybe you get a 401k, but that's not
Interesting.
retirement.
Really?
So you can, you going into this business, you should really think about those types of things. There's lots of politics and everything, whatever. But those things to consider.
Yeah, it without a doubt. And it's funny how, like, before you do it, so one of the things that I've always found interesting about the what it is to put that costume on, and you make that point about, do you want to be the performer, or are you, the argument of, we can get anybody to wear the costume. And it's like, well, not really. Even if you're not looking for a performer, there are certain things. And I legitimately owe you, Wayne, I'm sure you've talked to Wayne on this
Dr.
before.
Wayne, yep.
Wes, who was Bernie down in Miami, he was Duncan before I was Duncan.
That's right.
Because part of the ownership group that left the Nets and went down to start the Heat was a guy from New Jersey. And he brought Wes with him because at the time, Wes was really good as Duncan. He did all the stuff that you talk about and Wayne used to talk about. It's nonverbal. It's just the body language, how you address things. There's all kinds of nuances to being able to be in a costume. And now I don't really remember, but I was always taught don't talk, never speak in the costume to fans during a game. Absolutely not. Goes the aura of the costume per se. And, it makes it harder. And it also adds to things. I can tell you throughout my career, I've used that you might not think it's a big deal, but try to run around a basketball game all night and cheer and interact with people, but make sure you're not talking and make sure that the things you're doing are effective. And you kind of learn a lot about people.
Oh man, you're so right.
Right?
Yeah.
I can only imagine you. I mean, you're beloved in Denver. Like I said, it was such an interesting dynamic. Not that I was hated by any means, but the team was so bad. I mean, so it was, I learned a lot wearing that costume. I'll be the first to admit it.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of life lessons there. And, interacting, like you said, that was my favorite part. It got to be my favorite part of performing. It was, that all the crowd work and everything, the interactions, just playing off of everything that was being thrown at you, and it was from one end of the spectrum to the other. Rocky, can I get a picture with you? To, Rocky, you suck. Or, hey, somebody, you overhear them, hey kid, go pull his tail, to, Rocky, sit down, and just on and on, and then you get the, I don't know. I loved challenging myself in the crowd. It was just a constant thing. I loved climbing over people. I loved, there was even some altercations that happened there. You sit down, you start flirting with some girl. Come on. I'm in a costume and you can see where my hands are and everything, but all of a sudden you got this behemoth next to you, you just unleashing on you, get away from my girl, and then I did another one time where, like, a little bit, I just wanted to share this one. When you talk about lessons, it's just human nature. Okay. I'm on the court, game's going on behind me, but I'm in the corner, and there's this, little kid wants to take a picture with me, whatever. Yeah, okay, wait. Team goes down to the other end of the court. I pull this kid out real quick, take a picture. His dad's right there, courtside, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see it. It's like in the Matrix. Remember the girl in the red in the
Yeah.
movie The Matrix? Yeah, Bing, this girl in red, huge chest, wearing the a dress that was just painted on her, and she walks into frame, into my view, and I'm like, oh my gosh, just instantly I shove this kid, like, get out of here, kid, you bothering me, and I just like focus on this girl. And she comes around the court. I'm at the corner. She comes into this, in the side, and then she walks in front of me, and I just lost all character and just stared and stared and stared, stared and stared and stared. Well, of course, it's those pauses, it's those quiet moments, it's the stalls that also grab people's attention instead of just, being crazy. And so when I lost all that character and she's walking by, well, of course, everyone in there around her are locked on her. Their eyes are locked on her, right? So I went with it. Human nature here. I'm playing into what everybody is doing and wants to do, stare at her, guys and girls, in a different way,
Absolutely.
right. And half of those women are like, just upset that she's getting all this attention. Well, I followed her. She walked all the way down the court. I ended up just walking right, like on the court itself, right in front of courtside seats, and follow her all the way down to the other end of the court. She makes the corner. Of course, she's strutting it. Why is she coming in that corner and going all the way around the court to her seats over there? She wants people to see. So I play into it. She ends up, I'm stumbling over people. But I'm keeping my eye on. I'm stumbling over purses. I'm on, this is like all playing out here while the game's going on. And then she goes up in the crowd, and of course I follow. She goes up, kind of scoots into her seat. Sure enough, there's a seat next to her. I stumble, I climb, I'm just, I got to get to that seat. Excuse me, no one else matters. Sorry, I'm spilling stuff, whatever. And I go and plop down right next to her. And, everybody's eyes, at this point, everybody's eyes are on me. And I realize that, and I go, what do I do now? Oh, yeah, I gotta look. So I whip her to the side and look right at her chest like everybody else is. And the crowd just goes, yeah. Just that animalistic, just human, thing comes out. And yeah, and I, of course, I stand up, I,
Right.
wipe my forehead and the whole business, like, whew, all right, I'm back. I'm okay. And yeah, thank her, kiss her hand, and then walk off. But, the cheers were just like, yeah.
Yeah, but you describe those nuances, the way you follow behind her, the way you probably climbed up the stairs or the chairs as opposed to like normally walking up. You made it seem like, oh my God, I gotta get to her. Which are those nuances are communicating without saying anything.
Yeah.
To your point, you connected with every fan in that arena. And that, not everybody understands how to do that in a costume, know?
Yeah.
You are a master at it, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. It took me a lot of years to get to that point. But,
So, go.
No, I was just going to say, so in those early years, though, that was the early years of the NBA mascots. Of course, all these other guys were coming in. Wes had already been there. Wayne had already been there. I was new, and you were new. Paul Linney came in a short time after that,
Right.
and you remember John Kudo was
Utah?
no, he was
No.
Timberwolves at the time.
Okay.
Yep, and so John was not a gymnast. Bob was the gorilla. Um,
Paul
Paul
was.
Linney, gorilla.
Yep.
Hornet. Mike
He
Cirillo.
was. Who was
Yep.
the guy that ended up? Who was the guy who was Swatch? Squatch, the
Squash.
first one.
Okay, so yeah, the first guy was. Oh my gosh,
I'm blanking on his name.
There was Mike Sweeney.
I don't know. Was that might have been him?
There was also Adam.
Might have
Um,
been.
was it
I don't
Adam?
know. Like I said, too many of them. I
Yes. Oh, wait.
fell into corporate world.
Yeah, but the guy that actually ended up taking over and really running with Squatch was Mark Taylor, and he's a
Good
good friend of
character.
mine. Yeah, he
Yeah.
actually worked with me in Denver before he went and tried out there,
Oh,
and yeah,
one of the other things I always talk about when I talk about just that experience in my life is the understanding of how a basketball game is a show, which is over the last few decades, it's become evident as it's literally become way much more of a show than it ever was.
yeah,
I joke now, and I joke with people, and I'll say, and I'm showing my age, but I can remember going to Madison Square Garden, and I joke and I say, you know what they did at halftime? Nothing. Your parents stood up and smoked a cigarette. Maybe they bought you some popcorn, and you waited for the game to start again. And you know what happened at timeouts? Nothing. You waited for the game to start. That's all that happened.
yep. That
But
was a point for you to get up and stretch and talk to your friend, and
absolutely complain about the team to the guy behind you. But then I got involved in game ops, right? That's what it's called, game ops.
Mhm.
And you sit in that meeting at the beginning of the game, and it's like, 702, 708, and all of these things. It's all programmed, it's all planned. So that was a really interesting aspect. And most people, they get it, but until you're doing it and all hell's breaking loose sometimes, it's a hard thing to kind of get that, oh, so this thing's all planned. Well, yeah, it's planned, and that's how this all works. I think we're winging it every night. And what you do takes it to a whole nother level with props and just the timing of it. And I'll be the first to say, like I said, the first things the Nets loved me doing, it's almost embarrassing, but throwing myself down the stairs. Because if you knew how, you got four corners, right? And we had the hockey boards up all the time because the floor was dropped on top of the ice, and
Right.
the Devils played in the same building. So we had the boards all the time. And to your point, big giant costume, when you're walking down the steps and somebody like loses their step and all of a sudden they're, oh no, I can't stop. And I would basically do that down 8 stairways a night, throw myself into the dasher board, the hockey board, and that way I could kind of flip my whole body up and over the board, and then I'd disappear on the other side, and everybody would be like, oh no, is he okay? Then of course you'd peek your little googly eyes up over the board and stumble around like an idiot and do something else. So when you made that comment before, tough on the body, you know, if I was doing that nowadays, I would ask the team for a masseuse. I'd need a trainer. I'd need to get tape before every game. Oh my gosh. So
Yes,
beat.
which a lot of us ended up doing. Yeah, I had massages worked into my contract, chiropractic. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
I
need
mean,
it.
yeah, my son, he's the mascot for the Pistons. He calls me the other night, and he's like, "Okay, I think I'm getting to the point where I need an IV." He's like, how did you call for that? I mean, just the
Yeah.
little things that I learned along the way, what I can get an IV. Okay, boom. You know, what a difference that kind of thing makes. But people don't know that after the game, you're getting an IV, or you're throwing up because you just exhausted yourself. I was, there was so many timeouts that, we didn't have any entertainment for at the end of the game,
And you'd go every
overtime,
time.
double overtime. Man, those were the nights that I was in my room afterwards sobbing, just just in tears. And gosh, management would come in and be like, "Well, is everything okay? What's going on?" Looking at my assistant, "What's happening?" And I just got my face in my hands because I had given everything. I am so exhausted, mentally and physically, that there was it was nothing else but just let it out. You
Yeah,
know,
it's interesting because I never felt the need to top myself because, like I said, I kind of explained already how the management of the team and just the game day ops and what this mascot represented was not nearly as important. So I can only imagine the exhaustion and the stress level, for lack of a better term, of every you're the king of ESPN highlights, as far as I'm concerned, from a mascot standpoint, and then you get stuck like, all right, do something better now. That's the difficult part of being an entertainer. I never really considered myself an entertainer. I'm that guy who put the costume on. Yeah, I owe it to all of you guys. And yes, my personality probably leans that way that, oh, yeah, I can do this. It's fun. I'm a fan, blah, 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 blah. But the level that you took it to, I can't fathom it. Like I said, my big deal, falling down steps, as much as I hate to admit it, one thing, and all of your listeners, doesn't matter who you are, if you're in a costume or not, you want to make a little kid happy, play the gimme five, take it away game. Gimme five, take it away. Every little kid seems to think it's funny. 5 and under. They'll laugh and think it's hysterical. And then put the hand out, and when you pull it back, hit yourself in the face. More self-deprecation. They love that too. So I was busy doing all of this little stuff to get one smile here, one smile there, where you created this storyline that the whole stadium was waiting. Okay, Rocky, what's next?
exactly.
I never
Entertaining.
had that
Are
pressure.
you not entertained?
Yeah.
Well, but see, one thing that I really appreciated about you is, like you said, or you alluded to, the your personality was is such that it lends itself, your sense of humor and your thoughts, your just the way you relate with people out of the costume. That's, I think, such it's an advantage that maybe I didn't have, because out of the costume, I'm not really that guy. I'm energetic, but my sense of humor and my sense of wit and things like that, I think, are not as quick as
Huh.
as someone like Rob Wycall became so. Tim Dirk, you remember Tim Dirk,
Oh,
Coyote
yeah.
at the time? Yeah, he's got I would relate you and he, pretty
Oh,
closely. And
okay.
then, somebody that took over, the person that took over for him, same type of wit, personality, sense of humor, and things like that, really lended itself to the Coyote, and carrying on that his thing was, he's the coolest dork in the room. He
Ah,
kind of plays off of that, and which really, you know, with your personality, I think that it really worked for you. We had
well,
a
it's
Yeah.
funny. One of the other things that you bring that up is I have a fairly decent sense of rhythm. I'm far from some great dancer or anything, and I played ball my whole life. I was a basketball player all through high school, intramurals in college, but I loved the game. So I moved pretty well. One of the other fun parts would be, where the player's family sits,
Yep.
right? I mean, I'm
Yep.
sure you knew in
Yep.
Denver where they all sat. Again, it's the nets. Plenty of empty seats in the net in the arena in those days. But I knew where they all sat. So to your point, nothing going on. I would rather be out wandering around in the crowd than sitting in my locker room. I
Oh,
just
yeah.
enjoyed it, right? Like
100%.
you said, you get exhausted, but the energy level just keeps you going.
Oh, yeah.
And one of my favorite things to do would go over there and just dance to whatever, during timeouts and whatever was playing. Because inevitably, Derek Coleman's mother would be there. And I knew that was DC's mother. And I could get her up and we'd be dancing together and doing it. But they don't know who I am. So there'd be nothing more fun than the post game when some player would see me at the restaurant that everybody kind of went to the same place after most of the games and point to me and go, come over here. And I'd walk over to the table. Hey, good game. And then he'd go like, you guys know who this is? To the family. And they'd be like, who? He'd be like, that's Super Doug. Oh, no way. He's a
They
white
lose their
guy.
mind.
There's no way he's a white guy. He is a white guy. You got rhythm, man. Well, maybe it's because I'm in a costume, but I appreciate that nonetheless. That was always one of my favorite things to do is hit the family section over there. Some of them knew who I was, other ones didn't, but that was always a good time. And that's one of those, I'm guessing I've probably shared that story with you in my lifetime, but this one, the skits. You made, I didn't know skits prior to like meeting you guys. And we did this skit with White Castle, the hamburger place.
Yep.
You know how every arena and most of your fans, if they're NBA fans, you get the family night package, 4 tickets, 4 gifts, dinner for 4 and it's, Burger King, McDonald's, White Castle, wherever.
Yep.
And 4 tickets. So I did a skit. Where I'd run out and it was White Castle night. So I would go, oh, it's White Castle night and act like I forgot something and run off the court. Then we filmed a video. My only video I ever made while I was at the Nets. You probably made hundreds of them. And I jumped in. We had a cab pull up one night and we filmed all this. And I hopped in a cab. We drove to White Castle. We filmed me like running in, pushing people out of the way to jump behind the counter and grab my bags and ran out. And they show me like pulling up in front of the arena. Then I run back onto the floor and I got these bags of hamburgers. So now before the game, I usually picked up hamburgers like on my drive into the arena. So it was like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I'd be picking up burgers. I'm throwing them. I wrap them up. We wrap them up in tinfoil or something, and we're throwing them to the crowd. And you know who wants these hamburgers the most? People sitting front row and in the front.
Right.
And it's like, dude, you're spending $400 a seat or whatever it was at the time. And you're literally like elbowing some woman in the face for a 89-cent cold hamburger. What is wrong with all of you people? Right? You used to get that. You have to have that type of experience.
You just nailed it. I have so many like that. Oh my gosh. So were they fighting for them?
Yeah, they'd act like, oh my God, I got to get it. It's like, dude, it's not. Then it would be even funnier because I knew who those people were. So you'd go out to the bar afterwards, and a lot of times those that are courtside and such are mingling after the game with the team and such. And I know who that idiot was standing over there. He's Mr. Cool. I mean, like, dude, that guy's an idiot. So I watched him push over an old lady for a cold cheeseburger. Yeah.
Right? Oh my gosh, that's so true. I'm like, what do you want with this? This is just a little, I'm sorry.
It speaks to a good skit, though, which, again, I learned from you guys. I learned that from all of you guys, without a doubt.
Man,
So,
yeah, that's a good video skit right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did rappel. Rappelling was probably my most scary thing I ever did. I rappelled from the catwalks
Really?
up top.
Now, back then, did you rappel yourself or did you get lowered in?
No, I did it myself because it was so bad, essentially. Like again, I went and trained with somebody because it's not like I was an expert at rappelling. I think I drove up to West Point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they let me use because at the time nowadays, hell, you can go to high schools and they have climbing walls and all kinds of crazy things you can do. It's not like everybody had walls and places you could rappel back then.
Right.
So I think I went up to West Point and the guy trained me for an afternoon and like taught me how to do everything. Then I had to come back. There was somebody at the arena that said they did it. And I'm like, okay, fine. That'll be my guy. We walk up there. I'm in costume and just did it. I look back and realize it's like the dumbest thing I could have ever done. But a lot of that happened back then. That
Now,
was
did you rig it up or did this other guy?
the other guy rigged it up. The
Okay.
guy that was like part of the crew in the arena that
Uh-huh.
he was the guy, he took care of all of that for me. But once I had my feet against and was harnessed in, it was all me. And you're
Right.
right. When I think about it, had I made a mistake, it would have been a huge issue.
Yeah. Well, that's why they ended up making a rule that you cannot rappel yourself. You have to be lowered in. And it was
didn't know that.
actually after that professional wrestler took that fall.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Wise
Yeah.
decision.
I was so disappointed in that because I loved rappelling and I loved controlling my speed and then also controlling like what I got to where I got kind of pushing the limits on that. Okay, I'm going to rappel hanging by my ankle.
I
And
remember those videos. And
yeah,
I'd be
stuff
like,
like that.
what is wrong with him?
I was like, I got to change it up somehow. And there was one time when I was up there throw it, and back then at McNichols Arena, it was owned by the city, and so the city was not concerned too much with safety and getting sued and things like that, right? So now that all these arenas are owned by private entities, it's a whole different story. But I remember
Right.
the stage hand up there tying off my rope for me. And, now they have official riggers and, all that. But yeah, it was just Nick or Gino or, whatever, just throwing a rope over, tying it off. And yeah,
Good. Thumbs
You're
up.
good.
Let's do it.
I remember running over there. I had thrown some t-shirts off the catwalk before my cue one night. And all of a sudden I realized I'm hearing my cue I got like 5 seconds. I'm already, harnessed up, but I'm not clipped to the rope. I run over there real quick, run up to Nick. He clips me in. I dive over the rail, put my, I'm hanging onto the rail, but my feet are against the catwalk and I'm just about to push off. And I realize, oh my gosh, I'm no longer hooked. I'm not hooked in.
Oof.
That was before the locking carabiners came in, and yeah, it had unclipped when I'd climbed over the rail.
Wow.
So yeah, he grabbed me at the same time as I realized it. He grabbed me and yanked me back over the railing. You're not clipped in. I'm like,
that would have been the last time for me.
Yeah.
So were you in Oklahoma when we did the Oklahoma State Fair? Do you remember that era? It was that heyday of mascots.
Yeah.
And they would take like the NBA Jam session, that thing that they do
on the road
for fans, and they take it on the road to just kind of promote the game. And kids, they'd have like Manute Bowles wingspan or whatever it was, and then they do little skits.
Put your hand in their hand on the ball,
right? that kind of stuff. But then they invited some mascots to these things. And
Yeah.
I can remember I did Oklahoma for like a week. They fly me out to Oklahoma. I'm staying in some crazy dive motel with a bunch of carnies at the Oklahoma State Fair. It's the craziest week. And that's the week Paul Linney got us free jumps off the bungee jumping crane at
Oh my
the
God.
fair.
That's right.
Were you
I heard
there?
about this. I was not there, but I
No, well, you're
heard.
lucky. So, so again, you've heard my description of like how I approached mascotting and the whole concept of how I got myself mixed up in this. And the repelling was one thing, but I'm standing on the top of a whatever 6-story crane in Oklahoma in a costume, sweating ridiculously with a bunch of carnies that clipped me into this crazy bungee jumping thing. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to die in a costume in Oklahoma at the state fair. And that's just an awful story to have to tell my wife, or I don't even know if, but I did it. I made it, and I probably did it another 20 times before the end of the week. So yeah, a lot of
What a
crazy
ball.
things.
What a
A lot of
ball.
crazy
Yeah.
things. And then the other part of that story, if I'm not mistaken, what was that guy's name? Desi. He
Oh
was
my gosh,
the
Desi.
Sacramento Kings, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a character. Not that you got to kind of be one to be in this business, I think, Kenny.
Yeah.
But he ended up having a baby with the bungee jump people's daughter. And it was like,
That's
what
so
on earth is going on in Oklahoma at the state fair with mascots? That was one crazy trip,
oh, Desi. Oh my gosh.
right?
Yep. They stayed at my house one night or a couple nights. They spent the weekend with me as they were traveling across the country, heading to California or something. Yeah.
God bless you, Kenny. Some crazy times, man.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Desi was a character for sure.
good stuff.
How
I
many
do.
years did you do this?
I did it. Well, believe it or not, I actually wore a third costume
What?
because the Nets, I told you the Nets ownership group was a little out there, but they changed the mascot again when they changed the logo and changed the uniform to the navy. It was like the Jason Kidd era,
Yeah.
and they wear that gray NJ. It's kind of like a triangle shape.
Yep.
So they changed that whole thing again, and they changed it into a fox.
Sly.
Sly the Fox. I would show up. I did appearances. Sometimes it was just, we need you to do 2 parties. Don't even worry about being on the court if you don't want to do it. And I'd be like, that's okay. I'll go on the court. I don't mind. Again, I'm a fan. I think it's a great thing if you also are a fan of the team. So it made it a lot easier to kind of wing it when I
You
didn't
were
have what you had.
yeah, well, are a true fan of the sport. And I love that and I appreciate that about you and the fact that you wanted to just be a part of it and be in the, be in this in the building, be on the court and entertain those fans. You know, I have a couple more questions for you. One, how much money did you make at All-Star games off of trading cards?
Well, you know what would happen is, so at one point I worked in the trading card industry.
Yep.
I was part owner of a small trading card company. We had a couple of different products, but again, dating myself, but when Upper Deck and the whole high-end trading card market kind of exploded in the industry, the concept of what would they call them? They would call them promo cards. So it wasn't like an official trading card. It was something that they'd hand out at an event. And they probably still do it at games. Like, you go to a game and the free giveaway is a pack of Nuggets team cards. And it's sponsored by whoever, some
Right.
local sponsor. And you just, it's as long as it's all happening through the team, it's not hard to execute things like that. Otherwise, you got licensing rules and all kinds of stuff. We did one at the Nets. I got into the trading card industry and realized these things all sell for a premium, all of them,
Yeah.
because there aren't that many of them. They were only handed out at the game. And back in the early days of it, there weren't everywhere. Everybody didn't do one every year. And, now it's gotten all watered down quite a bit. But at that time, so to your point, anytime I went anywhere, it's promo cards, I'm in. I know it's one of those things where you kind of go, ooh, how much is that worth? Well, it's not worth anything unless you know people who want to buy it. But because I worked in the trading card industry, I knew a lot of people who wanted to buy them. So I also had an inside scoop on getting an extra handful of them because, there's always extra.
Yeah.
And
I
so lo and
remember.
behold, I made a little side cash.
Yeah.
God knows I wasn't getting paid a lot from the Nets.
I learned a few things from you. Just throw this out there that you could probably make some money at going to All-Star games. Now, that was a long time ago. And what I'm talking about, I stopped doing a long time ago. But
Yeah, it was the Wild West back
it
then.
was the Wild West back then,
Yes.
man.
Oh,
Hey, can I get tickets to the game? Sure.
I have that story. That story. We were in Phoenix. I don't know, it was a long time
Yep.
ago. We were in Phoenix. It's a great logo too. To this day, my company sells that logo, the cactus logo,
Yep.
and great logo. That game, I don't know if you remember, but what was his name? Whoever the guy that was handling us, the main NBA guy, came in like last minute and said, "You guys want to go to the game?" And I'm like, I don't know about you, but we were at that point, because we were working the fan fest the whole
Yep.
time. Good guys like you probably got invited to perform at halftime. I stayed over at the fan fest, like
I think
super
I
dunk.
stayed over there too.
You don't even dunk. You're not coming to the game. What are you talking about? But he came in and he had all these tickets and he goes, and I'm like, sure. He goes, you got friends here? I'm like, yeah. He gave me a stack of tickets like this high to the NBA All-Star game. I didn't want to go. So I went out in front, walked around the fan fest, not in costume, and just looked for dads or, you looked for those families that were wandering around the fan fest, getting ready to watch it on TV, and walked up to them and be like, hey, you want to go to the game? Really?
You want to
Here.
go get in that New
Right.
York accent.
And then the best part was I gave those all away. So I was just being a great guy that day. Now, whether I would sell any of them, I probably didn't back then. The cards and stuff, again, that was a whole different world. But the tickets, yeah, you never wanted to tick off the NBA people too much. So
Oh,
but
man.
that really is a wonderful memory that I have of a couple of games where, because we're in this weird position, we get access to something that you could share with someone. That was a good part of it, really.
Yeah. 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 There weren't any times when I came home with $1,500 extra.
Yeah.
There weren't any All-Star games like that. You know what? I got another question for you, and then I'll let you go. But give me a piece of advice that you would like to share with someone struggling to reach their goals, to, wherever they want to go, whether it's in sports or not. What would you say? To me, you have lived a sports life, and you have kind of lived your dream. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I joke all the time about that. I'm like, in sales, if you break it down in business, business is business. You go to business school, they teach you how to sell widgets, right? It's the infamous, doesn't matter what the product is. It's a process, et cetera, et cetera. And I always joke, I get the best widgets. I get to sell baseball caps and jerseys, and I've been doing, or, be involved in the NBA. We get the best widgets, like sports fun widgets. But as far as general advice would be something as simple as you should only focus on the things you can control. So much of life happens outside of your control, and wasting time worrying, complaining, stressing about all these things that are technically out of your control, they're just taken away from your ability to do what you can do most of the time. So that's real. Focus on what you can do and not what's out of your control would probably be best. Now, I will say I got a sign on my wall that I was considering using that I would say, it says, do whatever, be weird. It's okay. Because that works too, especially for me and you.
It sure does. I was always the weird kid in growing up, and I was either the smallest that didn't get picked, or the weirdest kid in the room that no one really wanted to hang out with because one reason or another I wasn't part of the cool kids crowd. And
guy with a blue goatee.
Wearing
the weird guy,
blue fur on his face. Yeah. But
love it.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Lean into it. And, I love that. Control what you can, forget about the rest, and that's great advice. You put that very well. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Ken. I really do. I have such fond memories, and my ability to have watched, and now, I still watch because I know your son and some of the other guys that are still kicking around doing it. I get my email blast from the Mascot Hall of Fame and try to stay in touch with some of the old school like Wayne and Wes.
Awesome.
You? Yep. Yeah, good stuff, man.
Good stuff. We had a lot of good times on NBA Jam.
Oh yeah.
When that first came out, he's on fire. Anyways, but I appreciate you coming on. It's so great to catch up and see, the history there, feel that energy from you. And if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and or if you have anything you want to promote.
Nothing more than anybody who listens, keep following your mascots and keep cheering. Try not to punch us when we're not looking. And, that's it. Again, I'm more supportive of you. I'm just a guy who used to do this a long time ago. Mitchell and Ness, I guess I'd promote my company because if you're listening to this, there's a good chance you're a sports fan, and Mitchell and Ness makes great product. If you like, we're known for our retro jerseys. So if you want to get an Alex English jersey or a David Thompson jersey or any of those old Nuggets, we make them. Exclusive license. So yeah. And I promise you, Kenny, I'll keep thinking because I know I got some other interesting mascot stories, and I thoroughly enjoyed chit-chatting with you about this stuff. Great time.
I love it. Yeah. Hey, and speaking of apparel, real quick, if you check out my website, this is for our listeners, if you check out my website, kensolomon.com, you can get merch like stuff like this. And so maybe you and I might be needing to talk here soon about some merch.
Well, I was just going to say, I didn't even know that. Shame on me, but I got to get me a Rocky t-shirt.
There you go. Everybody needs one. Well, I appreciate you. If you guys haven't subscribed and liked and followed and all that stuff, please do. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all listening. John, appreciate your time. You are a pro, a good friend. Love you, man.
Ditto. Right back at you, Kenny.
Thank you for listening. And now you know that there is a person inside there, a living, breathing human with emotions and feelings. If you would like your friends and family to know what is between the fur, please share. See you next time on Between the Fur.